Hello everyone.
Hello. We're still waiting for everyone to gather. Let's give ourselves 5 more minutes, hopefully for others to join because they're still not here, not in the lobby.
I'm sorry, you mailed that we are the more than 10 teams, yes?
Once again, sorry.
Yeah, you wrote that Mrs. Sofia wrote that we are more than 10 teams for Azerbaijan.
Yes,
Is
there's
the all teams participated there or not?
the participants the participants for the demo day will be chosen after the bootcamp. We will let you know who is invited to the demo day, who's not invited to the demo day. That's why it's important you come to the workshops before the actual event.
Yes, okay, but based off what you choose the teams for the demo day? For active, you participate
Yeah,
at this meeting or what?
yeah, for activities and yeah, and basically the stage of development and so on. But like, please don't worry about it right now. If something happens and you won't be chosen as the participant, then we will talk about it after the workshops. But I don't think it's something to worry about right now. So yeah.
No, I'm not worried about that, but just I want to know what's the your how can I say, just methods to choose these, just talking or just look at the what we answer on the Google Forms or something like that. Do you read our answers from Google Forms? We fill it or not?
Sorry, I'm still admitting people and hoping they come on the same time. But like I said, we'll evaluating you on basis on your activities, whether you want to be here, if you come to the workshops or not, and your stage of development. So yes, every answer you send to us is valid.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. As we are still waiting a bit because people are still coming on and joining us. I want to ask you nicely to write down on the chat the name of your startup. It's important for me to check if you're present or not. Um, it will like make everything easier for me. So, like yesterday, if you can write down the name of your startup on the chat, I'll be grateful for it. Thanks. Thank you so much for your answers. Okay, so I'm thinking we can slowly start, and I want to welcome you all officially on the. Okay, we've got Bookshifa coming and joining us. I want to welcome you officially on the second day of bootcamp that from the project the V4 Azerbaijan Tech Bridge that is co-financed, as you know, by the Visegrad Fund. And today's bootcamp day 2 is led by Civita, and we have Anna with us, Anna Lakova from Civita, who will introduce herself, and she will tell you more about the Slovakian startup ecosystem. Hi, Anna. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I am. I will start sharing my screen.
Yeah.
Give me a moment, please. Okay, can you see it? Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yes,
so welcome everyone to this short little workshop that serves as the introduction into the innovation ecosystem in Bratislava. So I'm actually originally from the city of Bratislava. I have started working for Civita, consulting company about a year ago. Yesterday you had a workshop with my colleague Martin Vesely, and we have been actually designing and asking speakers to join this workshop today. So my name is Anna Pastorekova, or formally I was Lackova. I'm consultant in Civita. I consider myself being a networker, event organizer, innovation expert. And together with Civita company, we have organized many accelerator programs. Some of them you might have heard of. They're called Challenger Green and Digital, or Healthcare Lab program, where startups not only from Slovakia but also from abroad can actually join these programs. They usually last for three months, and we organize some workshops for the attendees. We have also some hackathons and EIT initiatives, and usually all of these projects are in cooperation with partners. And our main partner is actually the city of Bratislava. So that is the reason why I'm actually here today, and I will be telling you what is actually happening on the level of the city of Bratislava and how innovative it actually is. At the municipality of Bratislava, there's this one institute that was formed recently, only 3 years ago. And they have said that the innovations, technologies, and new practices really need to be part of Bratislava, and it really strives to improve everyday life in the city as well as the functioning of the municipality. So they have built this institute on 4 main pillars, and that is the data, testing, cooperation, and the better city. So let's have a look on it a bit deeper. So what does it actually mean? So the Innovation Institute actually is collecting and gathering, later on validating the qualitative and quantitative data about the citizens of Bratislava, as well as about the public transport and so on. So this was not done in the past, which is kind of amazing that it did not happen. But this institute really believes that the decisions that are made on the city level, they should be really based on the data. But they don't end there only. So then they are testing and they're prototyping and testing ideas with the public. And they receive the feedback from the Bratislava citizens directly. Yeah, so they're actually asking different startups when they have some prototypes that are possibly implemented to the city, that they will approach them directly and that they can find a way how to do that. So the city is actually very innovative, in this way. Then they cooperate and they want to collaborate with the experts in private, public, and academic sector. So they really like merge all three large areas together because then the results can be much better. And then finally, the better city. So to bring something new and improve the quality of city services. So they really focus on the citizens as their number one priority, and they really want to make life for them better. So this is slightly different approach that the city had before. What is curious is that the Innovation Institute is actually quite a new thing. It started only with the last elections when we had a new mayor that was elected. His name is Matúš Valo. And he has introduced this idea of having Innovation Institute in Bratislava. So he had one person, his team, her name is Petra Zorovčinova, who was supposed to be here with us today, but unfortunately she could not come because she's very busy. And she says hi to you. So she was named the first Chief Innovation Officer in the city of Bratislava, and she started leading this institute. But she was actually the only person there in the institute as such. But today, after 3 years, she has actually this team. So there is in total team of 9 people who are really like gathering the data. They're searching for the startups that can do the testing in Bratislava. They have designed new website and so on. So it's really interesting to see that there's really something happening in the city and that it's much more innovative than it was before. So they have multiple projects actually. So one of them is, for example, called the City Lab. That is the first one. So what they do there, it's this activity where the team members are actually searching for startups who can apply their solutions to the city of Bratislava. So they have been some already, and they're still searching for more. So also you can think that in case your solutions could be applicable to a city already or in the future, then make sure to reach Bratislava. Then they're also like incorporating the Bratislava neighbors. That is the yellow writing. And they offer like different like digital services to the people. They can let others know when the grass is not the length it should be. Also in case there's other problems in the street, so that the municipality knows right away that needs to take action. The main project, though, that I would like to tell you about is actually Climathon Bratislava, which has been developed in cooperation with Civita. It is the largest hackathon in Slovakia, and it focuses on the climate change and how it is actually impacting the city of Bratislava. So the attendees that come, they form solutions for the city, and then city does something with them. So last year we had almost 130 participants. There were 17 teams. There were 33 mentors. There were more than 150 mentoring sessions. And we have had a great reach on social media. So this is how it looked like. It was one of the co-working spaces, and the teams have come really from all around Slovakia and also from abroad to actually attend this hackathon. Good. What would be interesting maybe for you is slightly to see like what kind of solutions were offered and what has happened with them later on. So the team that won the hackathon is called Canton, and they have compared the routes of the the route that you could take by bus or by car, and then they would compare the length. Based on this analysis, they developed this amazing table, and they have identified the routes where the next line of public transport actually should be located, right? So they have helped the city actually a lot, and they have chosen these 3 tracks where the difference between the car and the bus is the largest. Good, but the solution is not as important as what has happened after on, and that is that all of the teams, they have actually had a meeting with the mayor and his team, the innovation team, and they cooperate until this very day. So they have received even part-time jobs to enhance their ideas, to work on them and implement it right away, right? So imagine a group of friends joining a hackathon and then actually making a real difference in the city. So this is what really happened. And the other team, the eco-enthusiasts, they have made this map with the heat islands, and they have calculated what kind of effect more greenery or more water areas would have on the temperature in these certain locations. And they have really developed it really well. And they also were offered the meeting with the mayor, his team. They cooperate until this very day. And they have also gotten to EIT initiative, urban mobility. When we have received a call from Barcelona, that's where their main seat is, and they asked us whether we know about some kind of project that is being implemented in Bratislava right away. And we actually told them that yes, we actually know this team. They cooperate with the city of Bratislava. So they have actually designed a challenge where this team could actually respond to, and they had this opportunity to get to win the prize of 30,000 euros. So again, something that they probably did not expect when they were entering the Bratislava Climathon, but thanks to this very innovation and very fast reactions of the city, they were able to get involved. Good. So maybe just to sum up, the Innovation Institute Bratislava, it's building many prototypes. It allows also other startups to implement the solutions in the city. They're really addressing the needs of its citizens. They do it in dialogue. So they ask the people that actually live in the city to offer the solutions to the city. And this is what the Innovation Institute of Bratislava makes special, and how it makes the innovation sector of Bratislava unique. So that would be a short introduction from me. So yesterday you have heard something about the. And I want to stop sharing my screen. Here we go. So yesterday you had heard something about the Slovak ecosystem. Today you have heard something about the Bratislava ecosystem. And I'm really hoping that you will learn more also from our other speakers that I believe they're already ready to step in. Right, so thank you very much all for listening. Also, in case you have any questions about the city of Bratislava, then just let us know. Yeah, Samir, maybe you have a question.
Yes, I have a question that I'd like to ask. Do you have the problems with the Bratislava city you can solve until now? How can we help you? Because of that, I work at Other Cosmos in Azerbaijan, and we use the ArcGIS and QGIS and other satellite observation tools, and also drones tools. Also, I am the engineer and technical support manager at the Azastro Drone Technologies company, and we are innovate some new technologies, the crowd management and monitoring, observing, and etc. etc. Which problem we can help you with the Bratislava?
Yeah, so I would say that all solutions to the problems of Bratislava, they need data to be supported on. And I believe that that's maybe the strength of your startup that you have, that you are able to gather the data. Yeah, like currently, the biggest challenge I would say is the climate change and then how it's impacting the city, also public transport and many others. So then it would depend like on how high scale you would be able to gather data that could support the decisions made in the city. But it would be actually up to longer discussion. So then feel free to contact me actually later on. I will leave you my email address and then we can discuss it later on.
Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, it's a big problem to change the one city or climate new technologies because of climate change and etc. I think we can do something about it because of me and my teammates' backgrounds comes from geoscience and geophysics. We have master degree at this. Also, we can use some technical tools to calculate these changes on the Bratislava climate. Yeah, I'll contact you. Thank you very much for your information.
Thank you. And there is one more question, and then we can continue. So, Olivia.
My question about hackathon, as I mentioned before, can international teams apply or not?
So the international teams can apply to the hackathon, though right now it's possible to attend the event only physically. But we will see, I guess, in the beginning of October, and then there might be a chance to also attend it online, right? But the whole hackathon is actually happening in English language, so it's possible also for foreigners to attend it.
Thank you.
Cool. So it has been my honor to be here with you today. I wish you a great afternoon or evening in your case, I guess. And I would give the floor back to Katarzyna and then to Maya.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Actually, I'm just a humble moderator in here, and I would like to ask Marian. Is Marian with us? I've seen him coming in. Yeah, actually, I'm not sure he's with us anymore. Anna, can you help me out with that and call Marian to come back to?
Yes.
Maybe probably just technicalities, and Teams might have just pushed him away. We're going to listen about the story of the vacuum labs from Marian, who's CEO of the vacuum group and also a lawyer. The vacuum group is the leading one of the growing technology hub in the region. So it's hopefully a nice lecture, meaningful one, as soon as Marian will be able to join us.
Maybe in the meantime, while we're waiting for Maya, I would suggest that you will do a small research on the vacuum group. So when he comes, you actually will know what he will be talking about, right? So maybe you can go on Google and put in vacuum group, and you can then come back and say what you have found.
Yeah, this sounds about right. Yes. Okay, I believe Marianne is here now with us.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah,
Uh,
hello.
hello. Sorry for being late. I had to restart my computer so that the
Yeah,
sound
no worries, it happens. So
would work properly.
yeah, introduce you. Everyone knows right now what you're going to talk about. Everyone knows a little bit about your background. So basically, if you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you
Okay,
very much.
you're muted. Yeah.
So welcome, everyone. Yeah, I would say that I would provide you with a brief introduction to the story of the spot, which is the one of the oldest co-works here in Bratislava, and also to the vacuum, the history of the vacuum group that stretches back, I would say, 10 years. And then I would be more than happy to have a open conversation with you in relation to any questions you might have. So I would say that it all started with in like 2000, 2011, 2012, where actually Spot was founded in ugly, old-fashioned post-communist building. Um, there were no opening windows, and basically one of the first private public VC fund was operating there and funded first startups, approximately I would say 2 dozens of them, and these were the first seeds of innovation ecosystem here in Slovakia. So back then, I would say 10 years ago, it was very fragile, and I would say that looking back, it's incredible that in 10 years how the ecosystem can evolve. And basically, in 10 years, you can do true miracles when it comes to that. But back then, there were just, I would say, as I've said, a couple of dozens of companies and startups funded mostly from the public capital. And yeah, Spot itself has, like, I would say, I don't know, 60 tenants, a couple of companies, and then of course a regular events. Now, one of the companies sitting there was Vacuum Labs, which was a back then a software development studio, counting, I would say, 10 people, providing software solutions. Back then, it was doing very holistic software development. So basically, there was no particular industrial vertical that they were focused on. Um, However, the things started, I would say, to change around 2016, 17, where actually more public and private funds were created, and actually the liquidity of the VC market started to raise. So there were basically a couple of millions every year invested into the new companies outside of the spot. New co-works were created. Some of them were larger than the spot. Some of them were much smaller and more cozy. And also other cities of Slovakia started to follow on. So I would say Košice and also a few others were starting to develop their first seeds of innovation ecosystem. Also, I would say that back then, Vacuum Labs counted still approximately, I would say, 20 people, and this is where I joined in. And now we can move maybe to the Vacuum Lab story a bit. That basically the legend has it that the first lawyers got into the Vacuum Labs disguised as a salesman, because basically when I finished my corporate legal experience in an international corporate law firm, I decided that I was too young to do the law for the whole life, and so I I decided to maybe switch career. But actually, I met with Matej Vtáčnik, which was one of the co-founders of the Spot, and basically he hired me to started to do 50% law and 50% sales. Now, this was a time where Vacuum Labs decided to focus on fintech and started to so basically, Mateo, we were traveling Europe from London through Berlin, Vienna, basically everywhere, and we were trying to focus ourselves on the fintech projects. And this was a very important moment because we really got a few good things back then. First of all, it was the fintech orientation and the very, very early stages of the fintech. Secondly, it was that we accommodated as developers new technologies. Back then, it was React, JS, and a couple of others. And these two verticals basically meant that Vacuum Labs was scaling heavily. And I would say in 2017 we were like 50, 60 people already, and we were moving outside of the spot, and the spot basically ceased to exist at some point because it was just obsolete body at that stage, because more modern and more convenient co-works existed at the time. Now, Vacuum Labs immediately understood that in order to differentiate itself from software developers, it needed a end-to-end proposition, and therefore we acquired a design studio from Košice, Elephant, and we wanted to augment our capabilities. Now, this was one of the major failures that we encountered, because I mean, yes, in the long run, we acquired this design capacity, but the merger or the acquisition of the design studio in Košice didn't go really, really well. And we made many mistakes. And basically, after 2 years, only 1 or 2 people out of 12 remained in our company. So this was a rather mismanaged acquisition. And of course, if interested, I will be more than happy to talk about it a bit more into the detail throughout the Q&As. And so slowly but steadily we provided, and we were able to make our proposition as the Vacuum Labs, as the product builder, more robust, because we are helping with the product, we are helping with the design, and then we are also helping with the tech, mostly the fintech. And at the beginning, we were only able to sell ourselves to fintech startups, but with the successful fintech startups, and a couple of them already have like hundreds of millions of valuations. We were slowly but steadily started to also be interesting for banks and the challenger banks and neobanks, etc. So these were really thrilling times for us that provided us with the certainty, and so we can really boost our recruitment operations even outside of Slovakia, so also in Czech Republic and Hungary. So because the CE region is rather closely connected, the traveling distances are very small. I mean, in 3 hours you can be in Prague, in 2 hours you can be in Budapest, in 1 hour you can be in Vienna. So this CE region is well connected. There is a very good infrastructure in terms of roads or trains or buses, anything, planes even. So it was very easy for us to really build up a network of regional offices within these countries. And we understood that for the banks to provide comprehensive solutions, we do not just need designers and developers, but also product people. Now, this is very interesting because this is the point where actually the first spin-offs were created, where basically those bright people realized that, okay, we have developers here, we do have market understanding, so why don't we just, build something for ourselves and don't be dependent on the sales and the economic environment and everything. And this happened, I would say, in 2018, and this was basically one of the first and crucial moments for us, where we started our transformation from a software development studio onto a proper technological group. And one of the first projects we established, well, there were two types of them. First was a crypto project. It was a crypto wallet on top of the Cardano blockchain, which was called Adalite. The reason for that was that we realized that within the fintech there is another niche, which is crypto, and we had a couple of crypto enthusiasts within our company, so we decided to really boost our knowledge and skill set in this particular technology. And the other vertical that we were focusing on was legal tech, because a couple of lawyers that worked with me closely in the legal department, we realized that Vacuum Labs is boring, and if we are to hone our skills and develop ourselves, we need more projects. So we basically build up a Sparring, which is a law firm that is solely focused on the startups and basically scaling to the global markets. So I would say the legal and the crypto projects were the first spin-offs, but then as the time progressed, uh, we we had we had like 5 projects for a couple of years. They were slowly progressing, and then came a 2021 last year, where basically there was a huge economic upside and golden age. I would say there was a lot of VC capital in place. I would say 2 or 3 years ago, a couple of private public funds co-founded by Slovak Republic and also European Union were established in the region, and so a lot of liquidity flew into the startups, and this enabled us to say, okay, let's utilize this wave and try to build up our portfolio. So uh, in 2021, we scaled from 5 portfolio companies to 13. Now, this was tricky because basically all our backend, all our processes, everything, or our tooling even, was adjusted for a software development house, and as such, was not really suitable to sustain a portfolio holding of 13 companies. Therefore, we knew that this would be very difficult to sustain. Also, there were many conflicts, right? Because, for instance, the salespeople selling the developers in the software development side were unhappy if those software developers were working on internal projects, because then there would be no commissions for the salesman, right? So there were multiple issues happening, and we realized that the framework of the software development house is simply not suitable. And therefore, we precisely 12 months ago decided to set up a holding company with a supporting teams of software engineers, finance people, operations, legal, etc., that would support each and every one of the portfolio companies holistically, so that we would avoid any conflicts of interest. Now, we were we were not ready for this. I mean, you should do this transformation with 18 months in advance and plan it well. We did it on the fly, so it was very bumpy road. I mean, last 12 months were very difficult, but we still somehow managed. We did consolidate a couple of our portfolio companies. One of them was spinned out. One of them is being sold, but most of them are already managed to raise sub external capital as well, which is very good because now with the economic downturn happening and looming upon us, it's good to have a lot of cash at home. And this is basically where the Vacuum Group is. Currently, we have approximately 600 people within our ecosystem in the 4 different verticals, one of them being crypto, of course, where we are very active. We have some decentralized projects that we basically needed to spin off because it's decentralized. So we gave most of the governments to the community. There are a couple of fintech projects. There is a healthcare, and there are legal tech projects. For instance, there is this law firm Sparring. There's also one of the companies, Trama, which is protecting brands globally in terms of trademarks and everything. And I would say one of the most beautiful projects we have is Novuma, which is a healthcare startup, basically that was established in the course of COVID situation, and basically enabled us to attend offices even throughout the COVID waves, because it provided us with very cheap testing. And once we realized that testing is cheap and is working, we tried it to scale it to the whole Slovakia, and we provided such testing services to hundreds of companies. And yeah, basically our project saved hundreds of lives, so we were very proud. We also earned some money on this, so there were very nice stories within our portfolio already. um, so this is where I would say Vacuum Group is right now. Now we know that the situation is different than it was in 2021. We are counting on the economic downturn. We are trying to play it more safely. We are scaling less rapidly. We are trying to decrease our vulnerability. We are trying to increase our cash and reserves, diminish the risks, so that we can survive the winter that is coming. And we believe that those survivors then would be really in great position to conquer even not only greater parts of the markets, but also be able to establish and increase the additional value provided to their clients. Now, I would say that this is one of the very important things, is that Vacuum Group is not mostly about cash or anything. I mean, we do not have any private equity investors or anything. It's just the ultimate beneficial owners are natural persons, and all shareholders are pretty much natural persons, mostly the employees of the company. And we build it up also around the values. I mean, we truly believe that via these disruptive solutions we are building, either in the terms of fintech or crypto, we try to democratize the access to capital. Via health tech, we make the health more accessible. Via legal tech, we make justice more accessible to people. We have many marketplaces, and a couple of our projects are truly disruptive, and sometimes even I would say, legislation is falling behind what we do, and therefore we also needed to establish a public advocacy body and a campaign in Slovakia for innovative Slovakia. We already have support of like 80 ecosystem players, many organizations, banks, big companies, large corporates, but also startups. And we try to, and are in communication with the three ministries and also office of the prime minister, and we are trying to make the legislation up to date so that it can empower not only us but also the whole ecosystem. So this is also one of the great things we can already achieve with our size here. And also, I want to say that we are not optimizing for cash necessarily. I mean, in 10 years, we were distributing dividends, and they were very humble, maybe two times. But basically, most of the years, all the surpluses were reinvested into the growth or into the new projects or the diversification of the portfolio, because we truly believe that the projects we do are meaningful. For instance, we do have certain rules. We are not working really with the state. We are not working with gambling, or I don't know, some. We are trying to be really picky about the players and the industries we work with, because we only want to work with stuff that is meaningful, that brings value to the society. Now, this is not just some wishy-washy corporate bullshit, but it really helps. For instance, what we managed to do is that in Slovakia, we have a big issue with the brain drain. So many smart young people are studying abroad and then they're staying there, which is pity, because then we do have a scarcity of a high-quality talent. However, what happened to us is that with the values and the mission we are pursuing, we managed to bring many expats back. Like in last year, we were able to bring in more than 30 people from abroad, and those were people from New York doing investment banking. There was a CFO of Porsche, Southeast Asia, that came to work for us. So there were really high-profile people. Also, I don't know, every lawyer finishing in London basically gets immediately an offer from sparring. So it's possible actually to around amazing businesses with good underlying value to basically bring in the people that are living or actually went abroad, and those have great education, very good working skills and habits, and can actually enrich the whole organization. So I would say that even the brain drain that doesn't necessarily is an issue if you can build a meaningful business, because those people want to return at least this is our experience, that those people want to return to those families. They just need a decent money and a meaningful work. So I would say this is a very important feature of the Vacuum Group, and therefore we also, when there was a war, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we were helping on the borders, the refugees, and we did everything we could in this humanitarian way. But also where we are, as I've said, we are also trying to pursue the public advocacy with the government. Now, coming back to Spot, as our operation grew, we realized that there are very few suitable facilities within Bratislava for our headquarters, and therefore we decided to reopen the Spot, because most of the ideas actually came to us not by some, I would say, structured way that we had some incubators or acceleration programs, but most of they came because we were surrounded by other companies, and we are talking over the cup of coffee or over the lunch or dinner or whatever. with interesting people, and we identified some potential opportunities for us. And therefore, we wanted to build up this ecosystem and sustain and even grow this ecosystem around Vacuum Labs, because many companies, even without outside our portfolio, can actually utilize the synergies from us. And therefore, 1 year ago, we reopened and revived the brand of Spot, and we established a co-work that's right now the largest co-work in Slovakia. In November, so in like 3 months, we're opening additional floors. It's going to be like 10,000 square meters, around 900 people sitting there, dozens of companies. So it's going to be truly interesting. We have like event every second day, either educational event or some content event, or there are many social ones. So there are many opportunities for the companies to mingle, to know each other well. And also we are very proud that actually it's not just offices, but actually it's truly a co-work, which means that there is a strong community element, and there are actually multiple relations among our tenants. So basically, if there is some software development boutique, it's usually providing solutions for to 5, 6, 7 other tenant companies, etc. And there are multiple verticals over there. So right now the Spot is doing its expansion here in Bratislava. Also, what we managed to do is to acquire a additional co-work and branded Spot in Budapest, and of course we have more plans in surrounding cities in the CEE. But we do understand that the co-working is not the money generating business. I mean, we are not doing this for the profit. I mean, we don't consider Spot to be our portfolio company. We believe this is a community thing, and therefore we keep it as an NGO. We try to make it zero sum, so that basically it would not generate any profit nor any loss. So therefore, when we have tenants there, we don't have any margin on that. But we believe that with these people sitting under one roof, interacting together and talking to each other, they can truly build up something great in the future. So, in a nutshell, I would say that's us. Maybe to wrap up is basically in 10 years I've seen huge shifts, like literally from nothing. There was no innovation ecosystem in Slovakia 10 years ago. Now we can see not only a vibrant one here in Bratislava that is stretched not just in the Spot, but also in, I would say, up to dozen of co-works, thousands of people already included into the industry, but also other cities of Slovakia and the regions is well connected. So I would say it's a good place. Actually, for instance, the cities that in 90s were predominantly heavy industry cities with basically one heavy factory that if would go bankrupt or would be sold and closed, basically the people would starve. So right now we can see that the IT industry takes over the primacy and provides the employment and the value to the wide array of cities and communities here in Slovakia, for which we are very happy. We have 3 offices in Slovakia, so we are very happy to be part of this. I would say that's pretty much it. I would say for now, and I'm more than happy to answer any other questions. Thanks.
Hello, sorry. I haven't heard the ending, Marianne. Is it the time for questions right now?
Sure, questions would be great. There are
Yeah, okay.
a couple of people raising hands, so yeah.
Yeah. So that's exactly what I thought. So maybe we'll start from your questions actually. Maybe Bukshifa will start. You're muted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for the presentation, Marianne. Also, what you are doing is really great for those companies. But I wanted to learn about the bureaucracy in Slovakia. Also, do you help about that, for example, about the legislation, about the taxation processes? There are lots of entrepreneurs, but we are always struggling on the legal processes.
Sure, that's a good question. When it comes to bureaucracy, it's not ideal. Therefore, we have this public advocacy initiatives trying to fight this. But yeah, I can drill more deeper. I believe that Yura would be more than happy to talk about it later on as well, from sparring. But from my point of view, I mean, as I've said, we have rather obsolete legislation, which is in particular it's very problematic for crypto businesses because the taxation doesn't work really well. So most of the companies either try to tax their incomes in Hungary or Czech Republic, which is also possible. Uh, but then the problem of the European Union is, or not the problem, is that there is a strong consumer protection legislation. And for instance, if you have decentralized exchanges where you do not do any KYC, for instance, then you actually cannot really do the business here in the European Union, which actually kind of makes sense, but it's difficult. Therefore, those businesses are then set up in the British Virgin Islands or some other, I would say, exotic locations, and then only a delivery centers and the technology centers are in the Central Eastern Europe. So I would say in the crypto we are rather obsolete now. Oh, the one thing that changed for better is the, I would say, migration, because previously the migration laws were rather strict, and I would say inflow of the smart people was very low. However, even the war in Ukraine changed this quite a lot, and therefore many people, I mean, especially from Ukraine, but also from other countries, can actually come. Also, our politicians are pretty aware of the fact that Slovak businesses do lack a workforce, and therefore I would say it's possible rather easily to acquire the permission to work and stay here. Now it's not seamless, it's not fully digital, so it's not ideal, but it's pretty much working. Now, if you have already a business here, I would say that we are in the process of digitalization and making everything seamless. So I would say that we are not Estonia in terms of the services that you can actually set up your company via website. I mean, you should be present here to some extent, or at least you should have some advisors that would be working on your regard under the powers of attorney. But in general, the bureaucratic level is pretty much, I would say, on the average when it comes to the whole other European countries. Yeah, if you don't know the local ecosystem, it's always good to have somebody, either co-founder to help you, or some legal counsel who would be able to navigate you through the ecosystem. But in general, it's pretty standard, I would say. Yeah, I would say the main drawback goes to the crypto.
Okay, thanks for the great answer.
Katarzyna, would you maybe try
Yeah.
to select the questions?
Sorry.
Or should
Sorry,
I?
yeah. The Teams is a little bit like it acts up on my computer, so it just takes me a little bit to turn on the mic and turn it off. So sorry for that like small lag. But I'm thinking we still have like a question from Ovia Abasova. If I'm sorry if I pronounce your names wrong, they're really hard to pronounce for Polish person. And so maybe I'll ask Ovia and then Michali.
So I have a question about vacuum groups. I searched on the internet and I made some works. Could you talk about, or could you give experience? What kind of problems did you meet in the Bratislava ecosystem?
Thank you. Can you be more specific? Or what in particular are you interested in?
For example, from vacuum group, when you started to establish vacuum groups, what kind of problems?
Sure. Okay, look, I'll try to answer, but if I will be missing your point or your direction, just feel free to jump in and redirect me. Basically, as mentioned, I mean, there were a couple of issues we were facing. The first one I already mentioned was the ancient framework, because basically all the tooling, for instance, our management reporting was in Google spreadsheets, that was highly unsuitable for a basically diversified portfolio of different companies that needs to be aggregated on the holding. So, for instance, our tooling was obsolete. Our processes were too complex. So, with 600 people in stretching 13 different organizations, there were too many relationships, too many payments, too many loans, too many transfer pricings, etc. And therefore, um, we needed to make it more simple. We needed to change the tooling. We also realized that the teams we had on the finance and operations side were not up to the task in terms of capacity, in terms of seniority. So we needed to also improve that. So I would say that we made it, as I've said, we made the transformation on the fly. Ideally, and because we wanted to be iterative and startup-ish, but with such, I would say, size, it doesn't really work. In such a size. It should be more waterfallish. It should be more thought through in advance, so that actually before you start with the implementation. So that was, I would say, the first lesson we've got. That right now, when we are doing decisions, they are more well thought through, and we are aware of the implications before we start with the implementation, if they are really complex and robust. So that's for one. Second is that we were finding and struggling to find a high, good talent for the positions, and this was very interesting. I would say that until there were like 200 of us, the brand recognition was not really strong, and we were only able, or not only, but it was easy for us to hire people from our friends' environments. But actually, it was very difficult for us to hire people on the open market because our brand recognition was very small and was not really helping us at all. Now, once we reached 200 people, the brand recognition started to really get up the traction, and then it started to be very easy for us to hire new people. I would say this was a one very good stage that we hit like a couple of years ago. That actually it was easy for us to source skilled people from the local ecosystem. But still, we realized, okay, for certain roles, I would say head of design, for instance, was very difficult role. Heads of marketing for crypto projects are super difficult and almost non-existent here in Slovakia. Certain types of lawyers are also difficult to find, for instance, fintech lawyers. And so we knew that such roles need to be located elsewhere. And the third or the second stage for us was that our brand recognition grew beyond the borders, and especially the expat Slovak, Czechoslovak expat communities abroad, and we were able to basically target those Czechoslovaks abroad and bring them home with their experiences. And this was a great boost to the capacity and talent under or within our ecosystem. I mean, I would say up to date we managed maybe to bring in, I would say, maybe up to 100 people, and from US, from UK, from Western Europe, from Asia, and those people were one of the great assets, the best, one of the greatest asset we have. The other asset we have is failed startuppers. I mean, there is no better team member as a person that was audacious enough to found its own startup and then failed, because many lessons were learned along the way, and those lessons can be put in practice for the second run. So I would say failed local startuppers and international Slovak, Czechoslovak expats are the two main pillars we have we have here. I would say maybe the last thing when we are struggling with the resources was that we built up a solid relationship with the local universities. When it comes to the technology, we were we are in partnership with the local mathfis, so basically mathematics and physics faculty. For some reason, it's more suitable for our skill set than informatics and IT faculties. And also, we collaborate with the law faculties here in the region, a couple of others. So these collaborations prove as fruitful, mostly for the junior talent and also for some of the teachers, but in general, they work just fine. So this was, I would say, the third very important source that we actually were able to acquire at the very beginning. I mean, we have long-lasting relationships with those faculties, so we started with those. Then we got the failed startups from the region, and then we were able to bring in the expats. So I would say the human capital was the very important point. The last issue was that previously I would say that there was a scarcity of the VC or venture capital, which was mostly fixed by some of the public funds, some of the public and private funds, and some of the private funds. So currently, I would say there are like dozens of millions of euros ready for the local startups to raise, and despite the economic downturn, those money will be here for at least 1 or 2 years. So I would say that this is pretty okay. And of course, once the startups scale, then of course they raise funds elsewhere. I mean, they establish usually US or UK holding companies, and they raise funds in the Silicon Valley or in London. So of course, usually in Slovakia you can only see some Series A rounds, and then most of the companies move west and basically go through the Series B, C, or even exits with the international holdings. So I would say that in terms of that, Slovakia is a very good company for building, setting up the company, launching it, scaling it to a certain stage, and then either you can seek exit or you can move yourself westwards to actually scale your operations there. So, and actually, I would say the number of, and this is interesting that in Czech Republic, there are dozens of startups that started in Czech Republic, but they already scaled to the US and they do have US operations. In Slovakia, it's not that common. I mean, we have handful of such companies, but not many. I would say in terms of Slovakia, many companies have also UK holdings and also are being acquired rather often. But we can see a growing number of the companies from Slovakia with the US holdings, but the numbers are growing rather slow for many reasons. For instance, we've seen quite many unsuccessful attempts to penetrate the US markets, and therefore many companies actually went bankrupt because of that. But this is slowly changing as the, I would say, infrastructure and the know-how of the US market is getting more rich here in the region. It's much more easy, I would say, than 5 years ago for the Slovak startups or the startups from the local ecosystem to really scale to the westwards. You have better advisors, you have better mentors, better programs, and I would say the ecosystem is rather is ready to support you on such a road. 5 years ago, no one knew what should you expect once scaling abroad. So I believe that I answered your question, but if not, please just let me know.
Thank you so much. So interesting for me. And my last question will be about customer segment, because we have some difficulties about customer segment of B2C. As you know that all startups need specific customers for their ideas and projects. My question is, how can we learn directly from our customer segments about their needs? For instance, we organize survey among people and we collected their needs, but we couldn't learn directly from our segments. How can solve this problem, or do you have any suggestions?
Well, this really depends on the stage of your company. I mean, most of our companies when they start, and if they are B2C, but even if they are B2B, we always nudge them to talk to their customers, right? I mean, at the very beginning, it's important so that the founders do have a direct relationship with the customers and know actually what's important for them. However, once the companies scale, having thousands of customers, then it gets very difficult, and therefore then the big data come in, and of course the surveys and the, I would say, focus groups, and the not only quantitative but also qualitative surveys are very important for the client segmentation. So that's for one. Also, I would say that many interesting points can be get from good marketing department, right? Because if you do a performance marketing, you can clearly be able to segmentate the customers based on the marketing database, based on the click-through rates, based on the bounce rates, so that you can really see that actually what works, what not for what people, and this is also very important. This goes down to your cookie settings and everything, so that you know actually who is visiting your web page. But I would say that, yeah, with the long story short is that when you are beginning, talk to your customers as much as possible. Once you are scaling, then you should rely on the big data coming either from your, but mostly coming from your marketing department.
Thank you again.
Yeah. We've got Charlie with his hand raised for a long time, so go.
Oh, can you hear me? Okay. Okay. First of all, hi everyone. Nice to see you here in the second day. So I have a question to Mr. Povaznik, if I'm not spelling the surname. So we as a team, as a Yellowknife team, has some engineering and startup education in our background, and we are planning to come to Poland for studying business master, international business master, starting from the next month, September. So keeping it short, I wanted to ask to you whether it's possible if we collaborate with you. Would you like to collaborate with our team, as we will be in Poland and it will be easier for us to go the other Visegrad countries like Hungary, Slovakia? So would you like to collaborate for future works with our team?
Yes, definitely. I mean, thank you for this. Of course, I mean, either in Vacuum Group but also in Spot, we are more than open. So if you will be around, just let us know. I'll be more than happy to share with you the events we might have that might be interesting for you, and then we can meet even on the event and discuss the potential synergies and opportunities lying ahead of us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
If you have time, can I ask one more question, just short? Yep. I'm asking about that. I check welcome groups, startups, and their major area. There's more focus on the digital marketing or something extra. Do you also support the products companies that have the products and this they sell their products to the B2C, not the B2B, or we don't have any some we have more than 10 startups now. They are work on the our innovation labs in Azerbaijan, or they are in innovations agency of the governments and something extra. And so most part of them is not just digital. We have the products practically, and we sell them. Also, do you help about this kind of the business, or only digital business that they have their application or website or something? You do selling and service on the web.
Okay, can you maybe repeat the question, please? The last
I
one.
mean that we have the products. We have just, for example, tools for solve some problem. We don't have the we have our three product is digital, but all of others are not the digital. We have the some real products, and we would like to sell to the customers. Do you also have this kind of a product startups to grow up, or just only digital ones that they have the digital systems, or they have the web and they
I see your
sell?
point. I see your point. That's a good question. Yeah, this is a good question. Well, first of all, yes, we only remain in the digital sphere, so we have no hardware element attached to the business of us, and we don't have much experience with that. But of course, for instance, while working in Sparring, which is one of the law firms supporting over 200 startups in the ecosystem, they have, for instance, often work with, for instance, e-shops that have huge storages full of stockpiled goods, and also there are a couple of hardware startups that actually really craft some innovation that they either sell to the consumers or actually to the B2B businesses. So within the vacuum group, we don't have any hardware experience, and because we don't have engineers within our team, like proper engineers with crafts, and I would say we don't have the unique selling point in there, and it would be very difficult for us to penetrate such markets. But for instance, the Sparring, the law firm, actually Jure will be representing as a next speaker. They have a relationship with, yeah, I would say over 100 of no, maybe up to 100 companies that actually have certain hardware element attached to that. I would say that in Slovakia, most of the companies, most of the startups are still in the digital area, but not, and the minority goes for the hardware, because the ecosystem is just not, I would say, ready for that. But still, it's possible. We collaborated and supported and mentored many hardware startups, and but it really depends, right? It really depends whether you are selling something for the B2B segment, or you are selling something for the B2C, whether it's entertainment or it's a industry, or it's a health. So it really depends. I would say maybe the one of the only things that amounted some physical stuff was this healthcare startup Novuma, because there were some testing units actually necessary for us to operate the business. Then we need to dispose of the biological material that was contaminated. So I would say we have some medical experience when it comes to the hardware, but that's pretty much it.
Thank you for the answer.
Sure, but on the other hand, also in the local ecosystem, I would say there is also a good subculture within the ecosystem focused on the hardware. For instance, there is a one good startup, and they provide a shared storage for the e-commerce. So, for instance, if you are selling e-commerce, you don't need to go through all the licensing and verifications and renting and everything. You basically sign one agreement, and they can actually store your goods for there, and they have many storages. So actually, you can really shorten the time of the delivery, also decrease your costs, and also decrease your operations. So even I can clearly see that in the area segment of the e-commerce, such infrastructure players are being active and are scaling their operations. And I'm pretty certain that in other industries it can be happening as well.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Thank you for answering.
Right, thank you so much. Yeah, thank
Kasia, we can't hear you.
It's perfect now.
Also, I believe that Yehun is not muted.
Yellow.
yeah, I've just muted him. I think it was his background that was, inconvenient for us. So I was talking because we still actually have lots of time. So I was hoping to boost the conversation between us a little bit. And, you guys, if you have any questions at all, then please come and just ask them. Freely join the conversation. So I was thinking, Martin, about the vacuum group and the companies in your portfolio. You were talking a little bit that even the startups that have failed, those are like big assets and then important lessons. And I was thinking maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that story and tell us about what went wrong, what exactly are those assets, like what was the biggest lesson for you, what you've seen. Yeah, and I thought maybe that's be some interesting lesson for us as well that you can share.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
So, for instance, one of the first portfolio companies we founded was a community bank in the U.S. For the U.S. audience. It was founded from from Slovakia. We basically licensed the core banking system, built the front end on top of that, and basically build up the community management around that. Um, but the problem was that it was based in the US, and now our team was about to depart to the US so that they can actually scale and fundraise and everything. But then the COVID came, and our team was just unable to get to the US at all. So then what we needed to do and what we were forced to do was to basically shift the operations and the ownership out, big part of the ownership from us to the local team that was hired as a previously as a CPO, etc. Now they became CEO and the whole C-suite of the people. So basically, due to COVID, we basically lost control of the company operating in the US. Now, this was one of the important lessons for us that it's very difficult to to found and operate the entity if you're not in the country of origin. And so if you are founding a company somewhere, it's important that at least some part of your founding team is there, so they can really take control, because such unexpected events can cost you quite a lot. Now, I mean, fortunately, it ended up pretty well for us, but still. We needed to basically become a minority shareholder in the project that we founded. Right now, the project raised $15 million with 80 million valuation, so it's pretty successful so far, and they have very good traction. Also, they are ready for the economic downturn. They have piles of cash to burn for next 2 years, so it's pretty stable. But yeah, we definitely the cap table is very different from what we envisioned at the very beginning when we were setting up the project. So this was definitely one of the very interesting lessons we encountered. Um, Also, the yeah, the other one that is very interesting is that we not only try to found the companies, but also we try the companies to collaborate and help each other, right? So, and this is also interesting that when we are founding a portfolio, we are considering three things. First of all, the the priority is whether the business viability of the project itself, whether it can actually survive. Secondly, the mission and the value, whether actually it makes some sense and can add some additional value to the society or not really. And the third one is the synergy with the portfolio. Now, sometimes, of course, the product or the project can actually fulfill all three criteria to the best. Sometimes there are some compromises, of course, but we definitely do assess these three aspects. And yeah, I would say after sixth startup, it actually started to really make sense. We saw the obvious synergies between the particular companies, and therefore most of the crypto projects set up by ourselves were on top of the Cardano blockchain. So actually they can really support each other, because if you are on different chains, then it's rather difficult, or the potential synergies are rather limited. Now we realize that there are a couple of marketplaces. We have marketplace for lawyers, we have for the B2C marketplace, we have marketplace for mental health. Now we did realize that those two can actually join forces, that can actually utilize the same sales streams to the corporations that are basically willing to buy those services for the benefit of their employees, so that they are protected both from the mental and legal health. Uh, so, and this is also something that is very interesting, that it was quite difficult for us to identify the right mode how we can actually identify those potential synergies, nudge the companies to utilize them, and actually then to validate and verify whether it works or not. So also we need to build up, I would say, internal, I would say, business intelligence. We call it ventures team, and that team actually really thinks hard about how actually those companies can help each other and support each other, and save some sources when doing some other operations. So uh, I would say this is also very important for us. Maybe when it comes to our plans, this is also, I would say, very important that we did realize that most of the cash within our company was coming from the service organizations, mostly from the software house, but also from lawyers, and it's very difficult to finance a tech portfolio in the long run from the service-oriented industry, because then basically it just it will suffocate. It will be, the pace would be too small, too slow, and therefore right now we made ourselves a promise, and also because of the issues I was talking about a bit later on, we made ourselves the promise that we would not found any new company in this year, in 2022, and we would consolidate. But basically, we're already looking for the 2023. We believe it's a great time to found the businesses because the economy is down. The venture capital is also more scarce, which is good because only good projects would prevail, but then the market would be less saturated. So actually, the good projects with good teams, good ideas, good data can actually prevail more easy. And therefore, although the fundraising might be a bit more difficult, and then if you decide to set up your company, you know it will be very difficult to set it up and have some earnings from day one, right? It takes some time to build up your project, to build up your product, scale it, validate it, and then scale. Um, and therefore it usually takes years, right? So I think it's great to your business at the economic downturn, basically validate, and then once the economy shifts for better, then you would be there waiting. So I would say that the timing. I mean, of course, we have no idea what the future has for us, but if we are at least a bit of positive, I mean, I think it's quite a good time for us to think about it. Therefore, even in the vacuum group, we are thinking about the second batch, how it should be structured, what should be how should cap tables look like, um, what's the proposition, what is the value of the vacuum group that should bring to the company. This is also maybe a very interesting aspect as well, that previously we thought that we should provide a robust infrastructure providing unfair advantage to the companies in terms of not only some tech talent, but also operations, finance, back office, HR, etc., even PR. And we understood that the small companies might be happy with this, but then once the companies got more mature and got to later stages, they need to build up their own in-house capacities that are tailor-made for their particular needs. So um, we are also, after 12 months, we are considering what is the aim of the vacuum group, where we can bring value for money or some unfair advantage to the portfolio companies, and at what stage, and where not. So we are also going through, we will be going through some reshaping exercise rather soon, um, which is just fine. We try to keep it also iterative, although the iteration cycles got significantly longer from the compared to the early stage startups. So I would say these are the big challenges in front of us. We also believe that we will be able to at least change some legislation so that the companies can be empowered and not really struggle with the local legislation, because with the global competition it's very difficult if your local legislation pulls you back. Um, so this is something also that is on top of our list. And yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, the next 6 or 9 months will definitely define the way that is ahead of us. for the years to come. And yeah, we are at the beginning of the thinking process. Certain adjustments have been made, but much work remains for us there. And this is very also a very important point that uh, very few startups succeed if they have a long stop date, if they know that, okay, in 5 years I want to have exit. Usually with such mindset, very few people are successful. I mean, it's basically never ending story, and you should be able to build a very meaningful offering for your clients regardless of the time frame. And of course, I mean, at some point it might be good for you to undergo some merger or acquisition or exit, partial exit or strategy or joint venture or whatever. I mean, there may be many decisions lying ahead of you, but it's important to build the solution you have mostly without any particular time frame. And also, this is very important because if you have no time frame, you have to have a huge devotion. And this is also another point that we see that it's do not try to build up a team of mercenaries, of people seeking just money. I mean, because there will always be somebody who's paid more, and sometimes your startup would get into troubles, and then it would be very difficult for you to actually overcome them with a team full of mercenaries, especially we would be cutting their salaries. So you really need to have a dedicated team dedicated to the mission of the particular project, because such team can actually overcome difficult times, and there always will be difficult times. I never heard about the startup that was just shiny rosy from the early setup to the exit. This is not the case. It's difficult stuff. I mean, building startups is not easy. It takes a lot of your personal time. It takes a lot of your professional energy, sometimes even of your resources. Uh, and yeah, I mean, the upside can be huge, can be great, and you can bring huge amount of additional value to the society, and you can even earn some money. But it comes at cost, and it's very important to be aware of it. And therefore, only teams that are fully dedicated to their mission, they love their mission and their job, they truly believe in it, they can actually make it. Otherwise, we are not even investing in the teams that are professionals, because those professionals would not perform well in the not even in the mid run, not mentioning the long run.
My mic is very tricky and really takes like a second. So sorry, don't disappear on me yet. Yeah, so I was thinking you were talking about two things. About the story you told about this team that was not present in Slovakia. So, from the perspective of a Azeri startup that wants to set up in Slovakia, want to come and develop there, what do you think is the best way, yeah, if you can think of any, to look for a partner in Slovakia? That is my first question. And then you were also mentioning COVID being an obstacle. So I wanted to ask, how are things going in Slovakia? COVID wise, how is it all rebuilding? How it's influenced the networking and start relations in the startup ecosystem in Slovakia and Bratislava?
Sure, of course. Well, depends. I mean, either you can, if you come physically to Slovakia, then you don't need any local co-founder or partner. But if not, then definitely I would suggest one. Then maybe Civita would be a great partner to find your identify one. Um, but yeah, I mean, look, it's good to start a business in the European Union, because such startups are eligible for certain public-private funds that are supporting such operations. Also, there is a good talent here. There is more, or very often there is a advanced ecosystem that can support you. But this is the point, that it's very difficult to take advantage of the ecosystem if you are away. I mean, it's important to be in place, under one roof, talk to the people, drinking coffee with them, so actually you can be able to identify the opportunities for you. So it's very important for the business, especially in the early stages, to to know the people. Now, honestly, I think nowhere, not even in the US or UK or anywhere, but definitely in Slovakia, it's not working holistically that people are doing the best decisions. Usually, I you try to always reach out first within your ecosystem. So it's important to have connections. It's important to have friendships. It's important to have know-how of the local ecosystem because then actually it can empower you and make your decisions easier. So definitely, I think that if you're willing to build up your business here in Europe in CE, so either in the Slovakia or Czech Republic, Poland, Hungary, whatever, it's important to have food on the ground, either from within your team or be able to find a suitable partner for that. But I would say, yeah, depending on your stage. When it comes to COVID, yeah, I mean, we have another wave coming. However, I would say that politically, the situation is more calm, so people are not really panicking. Basically, everybody had a COVID here, so there is a good prevention. The hospitals are not that full, and I believe that there would not be that severe precautions and repercussions as we have seen in the first or second wave. So I believe the COVID would not be any obstacle anymore unless it mutates to something more deadly. But for now, it's pretty okay here.
Yeah,
Even
yeah, I believe Samir wanted to ask a
yeah,
question. Sorry.
If you have time, I have one more questions. Okay. I would like to ask that one or months ago, some companies say that we have, as I said before, we have Tron Technologies companies in Azerbaijan as Astro. One company said that there is order in Poland and also near to the country, the Poland, Ukraine, Slovakia, and etc. This country that's the they needs the drones for carry the health medicine or something, some takes for the products that transports from one hospital to the another or mobile hospital for the COVID-19. Is that also your startup or it's a different company that's the deal with it? So if you have any project about that or not, use drone technologies at else.
no, we don't do that. I mean, we of course do transport a biological material because of this COVID testing. But now, first of all, it's very difficult to transport biological material within the member states of the European Union. So even we are in the European Union, within the countries, it's difficult. So it's okay to transport it within Slovakia. It's okay to transport it within Poland, but from Poland to Slovakia it will be more difficult. So that's for one when it comes to biological material. It's possible, but it's difficult. Um, Also, I would say that the European Union has I would say, rather strong regulation on the drones. So they need to be registered, they need to be permitted, and only certain locations are up for them to fly. So there are certain restrictions. Now, I mean, those restrictions usually exist to protect consumers or ordinary citizens, so they might not necessarily be bad. On the other hand, they do represent a higher costs, especially penetrating costs for the businesses because you need to overcome them. But then the third thing is that if you overcome them, you are well protected against any other competition because they are facing the same issue. So it's tricky, and honestly, we most of our companies, if you think about it, either crypto, fintech, legal tech, health, all are regulated industries, and they are regulated for. And we are there because, first of all, they're regulated because they protect a significant values within the society. And since we truly do the stuff that we believe is right, necessarily we end up in the regulated industries. We don't want to, I don't know, sell socks. But on the other, and it's not necessarily the bad thing, but it will be very difficult for us to really make a enthusiast mission about that. Now, the issue is that once we be able to assess the legislative situation good in advance, we overcome it, we are very well protected, especially in the legal tech market. For instance, the legal marketplace we did for consumers, where people just for a few euros can actually get a advice within 24 hours from attorney that is tailor-made. Um, I mean, for you to know that, I would say regular hour rate of attorney here in Slovakia is somewhere between 80 to 150 euros. So there on our project, for 10 euros, you can actually get this specific advice. So it's significantly lower of very good quality, because those attorneys are pre-selected and actually are connected to your agenda. So it's a criminal law question, then you've got a criminal attorney. If it's business law, it's a business attorney. And it's not we do not have generalists there. Um, so it was very difficult for us to be able to be compliant with the regulation. But since we are, there is no other marketplace in Slovakia, because it's just too difficult for them to come. And this, on the other hand, can be seen as obstacle, but at some point you will understand that the regulation can be even your advantage. And it's really the matter of a vantage point, how you try to look at the glass, whether it's half full or half empty. But here in Vacuum Group, we try to see it half full, and therefore we feel very comfortable being protected by the massive regulation.
Okay, maybe it's my mistake. It's from the Poland or some country others. But when I search about the vacuum groups, I saw so many health related projects. That's why I think that it was your project, because they order it maybe from other countries near to Slovakia. Thank you for clear answer.
Yeah. Okay. It's maybe it was my internet connection, because something just got frozen. But
Yeah, I'm back.
yeah, great. Okay. I'm thinking, Marian, that since we still got a little bit of time, that maybe you actually have some questions to our Azeri startuppers about their Azeri ecosystem. That it might be interesting to share the knowledge and experiences between each other. So maybe there's something you want to ask them.
Sure, definitely. I mean, my questions would be that how do you perceive the ecosystem in Azerbaijan? I mean, that's the region I do not know much about. Also, I would be interested if there are any particular industries around which the ecosystem is being built, and maybe uh, what are the connections in terms of international relations? Like, for instance, in Slovakia, most of the Slovak companies have connections with Czech Republic. I mean, there is a huge amount of Slovaks living in Czech Republic, and many startups have dual nationalities and are cross-border. So I would say Czechoslovakia still exists in some extent, especially in the startup world. So what's the partner country, if any, for you? Or are you basically mostly on your own, or are you having some good connection to some of the countries, and which they are? Which are those?
Can I answer?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Our startup first start at the 2017. From these days, there's many agency and also agency by the governments. For example, some labs, social innovation labs, Sabah Lab, and etc. That they helped and support us accelerate the startups. And also there's innovation agency by the governments. Also there's too many of them, and we relate with the Georgia and also other countries, that Turkey, Russia, and etc. Because of that, now we also do it with the Norway and etc. countries. That's with the Social Innovation Lab. Because of that, our tech startups has the one prize from the Arab Emirates or etc. countries that are around the world. It's not just localized by the Azerbaijan and we do just a local business. No, we have too many international startups. So if you have any questions about them. I can answer as I know.
The industries would be interesting for me. I mean, what industries is your ecosystem build around, if any?
Industry human, which fields the startups we have the
Yeah.
more? Yeah. Okay. I'm an engineer, as I said before. That's why I know the more part of the these. We have some technology companies they solve some climate problems and some natural problems, or they help for the emergency stations, some etc. like that, or some defense problems or something extra. And also there's also two startups for using daily life. For example, help the people, because of our startups map is help the people during the daily life. It's a navigation, new generation navigation, and there's too many startups about them help the hotels, restaurants, and etc. and to organize their process on something extra. And
Yeah, Mehrali, do you want to jump in?
No, I just wanted to mention the same thing Samir mentioned. So our government, the country, does its best to help the startups for improving the country, the living of the citizens in other way rather than energy. So we are trying to develop the life, the living, to make the living of the citizens better. So with a way rather than energy, petroleum or other thing. So I just wanted to mention the same thing Samir did. Because until today, until nowadays, our government always the income always based on the energy, the gas. We sold gas. We of course now also sell gases, oil or something, but we are trying to go in other ways.
Oh, that's very good to hear.
Yeah. Okay, so my actually it's going to be probably one of the last calls for me. Do you have any more questions to Marianne?
I have just one more. You record the sessions, please. Could you please share the sessions recordings also and PDF also?
Yeah, that was to me about the recordings.
Yes.
And yeah. Okay, I will obviously share them. Yes, no worries. It just takes me a little bit, to do so. But hopefully tomorrow we're gonna get all of the materials. So today's there's been, except Anna's presentation, there has not been a PowerPoint or PDF to share. So, yeah. But
Yes,
don't
please.
worry, you'll
Appreciate it.
get. Yeah, sure. You'll get all of the materials, so don't worry.
Thank you very much for this great meeting.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so since there is no question, maybe I will just keep Marian here with us a little bit for like 15 more minutes, and then we'll take a little break. And so you were talking a lot about the team, Marianne, but except the team, if you can tell me what are the mistakes that are like a no-go to you from startups that you don't want to compete with, especially the ones that are coming from like the Azerbaijan ones, the startups that are coming from abroad, and you're probably looking for some reassurance that the cooperation is like a good direction to go in. So what would be a no-go for you?
Sure, of course. I think this is interesting. That In Vacuum Group, we do not really believe in a, well, I think that the interview is only the second best thing you can do. First of all, what's really the best thing is actually to hire the people ASAP and try to work with them. And through work, you can immediately know whether you have a good colleague or not. Now, such way works fine at the early stages of the companies, right? If there is a team of 5, 6, 7 people, you can hire people and let them go in after 2 weeks. They're sitting in the same office. You can immediately see whether they are performing or not. Once your team scales, then it gets more difficult and gets more costly. And therefore you opt for interview process. That is at some point inevitable, of course. But there also, it can be a performance based, like you are measuring IQ or skills or knowledge or whatever. But actually, what's really important for me is that, yeah, I mean, the person should be smart, but that's just the default setting. And what's really crucial, at least for the businesses I built, was the culture fit. I mean, for instance, we had like one reasoning test, and the person that was the best in the test, we didn't take him because he was just very difficult. We cannot imagine for him to be a good fit for our culture. Actually, for instance, in sparring, we declined, I don't know, maybe every fifth person that is going through the interviews and passes them, we basically refuse to continue the interview process because of the culture unfitness. And for some companies, uh, this is some, like, wishy-washy thingy that doesn't cannot you really you cannot really measure it. It doesn't really matter. But from my point of view, especially for the small teams, the team spirit is crucial. One of our portfolio companies actually has the best founding team within Vacuum Group. I mean, they have great CTO, very good CEO, great salesperson, great marketing person, and regardless of this, the team is not performing well. And they are not performing well because their culture is broken. I mean, they are trying to fix it, but this is the point that they scaled rather fast, up to like 20 people, and now it's very difficult to fix it when it's already broken. Also, it's very difficult, especially when it comes to acquisition. It's easier to hire 5 people, or it's even easier to hire 10 people than to acquire a team of 5, because a team of 5, they already have their own culture, and to integrate it with yours, it's big task. Whereas if you hire one by one people, then it's much more easier to integrate them separately, individually to your culture. And I would basically, and okay, this is my point of view, of course, and it's not the only one that is correct. But I am a strong believer in the culture. I mean, there is this good saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast, and I truly believe that the team that works fine. There is a good trust. There is a hype. There is a true belief in their goal. They can really overcome many things. The fluctuation and the churn rate of your team members is lower. The performance is bigger. You don't need to control them and check them and basically try to be strict on them, because they on their own want to work hard because they believe in the stuff that you do. So I truly believe that the culture is crucial. And yeah, I mean, most of our portfolio companies have different approaches to culture, but I can clearly see that the teams that made it right at the very beginning are much more powerful and better equipped for the difficulties than the ones that were more, I would say, yeah, technical, and didn't really consider this element.
Yeah. Okay. Martin, so since there's no more questions, and I've been bugging you honestly for like an hour with questions, then I believe you can freely go and move on to different things. Thank you for being here with us, for spending this time with us. I think it was really interesting to listen to all the points you've seen and like, to take from your experience. And so, yeah, so thank you once again.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your attention. I was more than happy to learn something new about the Azuri ecosystem. And yeah, I mean, if you will be around, just yeah, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to welcome you at this spot and show it to you around, and yeah, get you in touch with the local ecosystem. And even if staying in Azerbaijan, I think yeah, we live in a global world. A couple of our portfolio companies might be relevant partners or customers to you or even vendors. So yeah, just do let me know. I'll be more than happy to put you in touch with the relevant people within our organization. So it was really pleasure for me to be here today. And yeah, let's stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, and for the startuppers, I'm thinking we're
Bye.
going to take a longer break and or something, because we had like 10 minutes in the schedule, and I'm thinking we can take a half an hour break to till the next person is going to appear. I'm going to share some slides so um, you get familiar with the face of the new speaker, hopefully. Uh, okay, I'm experiencing technical difficulties right now a little bit. Um, my personal choice would not be Teams, definitely. So that's why I'm a little bit moany, maybe that's the word. Okay, so we're basically waiting for Uri, who's a lawyer, and he's going to tell us a bit about setting up a business in Slovakia from the legal point of view, so taxes and incorporation. And like I said, I think we're going to start in a half an hour. So you can take this time to to grab something to eat, grab a coffee, and see you in 30 minutes. Okay?
Okay, let's see you.
Yeah.
Sorry, the break is 30 minutes. I think yes. You are muted.
We can't hear you. Oh, mic is off.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 30 minutes.
Yes.
Okay, see you.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah. Hello. I hope you had a good break. And I believe Yura is already ready. So hopefully we can start.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice to meet you, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. I'm here today with my colleague Lenka. Maybe I can start with the introduction of myself. I'm a Slovak attorney. I'm leading Slovak desk at Sparring, and Lenka is our trainee, also focused on Slovak law. And we would like to talk today about setting up a business in Slovakia. Maybe I just let Lenka describe Sparring very briefly, and then we can move forward and to the main topic today. So Lenka.
Hi everyone. One technical question: can I share my screen somehow?
Wait a second, maybe I'm allowed to share it.
Yeah, we can see something, so I don't know who is presenting.
Lenka, I think you are presenting.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see it.
So now you can see it.
Yes.
Perfect. So and now also.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, Sparring. Sparring is an international firm. We are law office, but also we offer strategic consulting. We have 3 offices, one in Bratislava in Slovakia, we are here right now, one in Czech Republic, Prague, and one in US in Santa Monica, California. We started as an internal team of a big firm, Vacuum Labs, which is a software house, and we somehow moved from really young and small internal team to this big company. Now we have 40 lawyers, more or less 40 lawyers. We offer advices in different jurisdictions, Slovak, Czech, Hungarian, and the US, UK. What is our focus? We are focusing on legal tech products and also on technology companies. So, and this is very important on startups, because like we are trying to build startup ecosystem here. Maybe somebody can give us questions like what in what they are interested.
Maybe I just follow up on this and add that the transition just from the internal legal team of Vacuum Labs, we saw this huge gap in the market, that there is a lot of traditional law firms and strategic advisory companies that are focused on tech, but they are maybe too big or too expensive, or just overcomplicate things that for startups mainly. And this is something, this is our niche that we are building on. And right now we service over 100 startups in various stages of their existence and in various jurisdictions, as Lenka mentioned previously. And we are also partnering with investors. So our strategy services are tied to actually some kind of fundraising that we are able to help with and provide to startups. So I think that the best Q&A time will be at the end of this, but if you have right now some questions about sparring, feel free to ask. And if you don't have any questions, maybe we can move forward and start the main topic. Okay, no one. Yeah. So yeah, sparring playbook. I think Lenka, we can go back to this at the end.
Okay. Okay.
So we can go forward. This is my question to all of you. If you ever heard of Slovakia, I hope you did. And also, if you ever thought about setting up a company in Slovakia or elsewhere in the EU. And yeah, if there's anyone who thought about this previously, just maybe if you can tell us why and what's stopping you, and maybe some of you already started this process. So is there anyone?
To setting up a company in Europe or Slovakia?
Mainly in Slovakia, but if you already have a company in EU, maybe you can describe your motives and why you decided to do that.
We decided to do it in Europe, but not special country. Our startup is taking all Europe at the same time. Yeah, there is no any special local place.
I understand. Yeah. So if you are not tied to any specific country, it's all about the benefits that can be, the specifics that can be maybe decisive, right?
Yes, we are looking for which countries that has a easy low procedure or their taxes is low and they help to startups.
Yes, I understand. Yeah, I believe and I hope so that you'll find this information today and maybe you will decide for Slovak Republic. So
maybe in Slovakia.
Yeah. Okay, so we can go to the next slide, Lenka, please. And yeah, just a quick overview of Slovak Republic. If you didn't have a chance to look at it, it's quite a small country, but yeah, the environment is very stable and actually it's not a bad environment for startups and also for tech companies. And yeah, let's go to the next slides. Yeah, next one, please. Okay, so why it's okay, or what's the main features you should think about when setting up a company in Slovakia is that financial environment, as I previously mentioned, is it's stable. The currency is euro. The flat tax is 19%. The dividend tax is 7% or 0% if the shareholder is a company and the dividend goes from Slovak company to another company. The workforce in Slovakia is quite highly skilled, trained, and educated. So there's a lot of talents in Slovakia, and that's why we see a lot of high-end developer studios here and very sophisticated startups with interesting products. We are situated in Central Europe, but at this age, it's not very important where the country is situated in Europe, because we all use Teams, Zoom, etc. But yeah, it's a good gateway to EU market, and our clients have no problem whatsoever working with Western countries and doing business with the other EU countries. So it's as I said, it's a very favorable marketplace to start in. Slovakia is member of NATO, EU, OECD, World Trade Organization. So the political and economic environment is very stable. And at this time when the war is going on, we actually see a lot of companies that are trying to start business in Slovakia because they see firstly it's very close to the eastern side of Europe, and it is very stable. Slovakia offers interesting benefits for innovative companies. We have so-called it's called in Slovak super odpočet, but it's some like super deduction and tax benefit. There is a possibility of 100% tax reduction on the costs used on research and development. So under certain circumstances, it's very favorable to do research and development in Slovakia. And as I said, the personnel and people in Slovakia are quite highly educated, so it is possible to do it here in Slovakia. Lenka, please, we can go to the next slide. There are basically two ways how to do business here in Slovakia, and it's either you can be a freelancer, so some entrepreneur as a natural person. However, I understand that this is not interesting for most of you, because if you are startups, you are already thinking about the future, and if the future is that you will do some fundraising, then it is very rare, and I have never seen it, that there is an investment, either angel round or some seed, some pre-seed, seed, and other series of investments into freelancers. You should set up a company. So the other and more common way is to set up a company. There are also other reasons why the company is sometimes better way. It is that liability is related only to the assets of the company, not to the personal assets of the individual, the freelancer. However, the company requires some initial investment to set it up. Besides the initial registered capital that the company should have, it is between 1,000 or 2,000 euro to cost to set it up. But as I mentioned, this is still better because you can build this company and do some fundraising, and it is a required form to get investments. We can go to next.
Maybe I have a question here.
Yeah.
Is here somebody who doesn't have company in Azerbaijan already, like established? So everybody has, right?
Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, like if is here somebody who does have company in Azerbaijan, or if are here people who don't have this kind of company?
You mean the company that we established?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
No, unfortunately.
So you are like a freelancer?
Actually, we don't own any company, but we want, and that's why I have a question. If you let me, so you have mentioned that it's required about 1,000 or 2,000 euro to set up a company. So may I know for what this money is required? What we do with that money?
Yeah, it's for the court fees, some advisory fees because you'll need to set up a bank account and also get the extract from criminal register, and also if you need some residency permit. So it's the money for the advisory services related to this one. So yeah, it's mostly court fees and advisory services.
So this is just initial, right?
It is just initial, exactly. The maintenance fees are quite low here in Slovak Republic. We'll get to that later. We tried to do it in a very practicable way, so there will be examples and numbers as well.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll focus on companies because we understand that and explain that it is more common for startups to form these companies. So we should talk about forms of the companies. And even though we have more forms of companies, these three that we listed are the most common and actually favorable. The other ones, other types, forms of companies are don't have this benefit of liability related only to the assets of the company. So we don't recommend that, and as this benefit is, we think, quite important. The first one is a limited liability company. It's the most common here in Slovakia. We see it as most common, for example, in Czech Republic, and most of countries have some equivalent of limited liability company. It's cheap to set up, cheap to run. In few ways, it's not as flexible as, for example, the simplified joint stock company, but especially for early stage startups, it doesn't matter that it's not so flexible, because in early stage companies often don't create some real employee stock option program and other mechanisms that requires flexibility in the company. So limited liability company, as I mentioned, it's cheap to set up, cheap to run, and it's most common here in Slovakia. The second one is joint stock company. Yeah, even though we mentioned it here because it gives you the benefit of liability related only to the assets of the company, not personal assets, it is quite expensive to set up and also to run. The minimum registered capital is 25,000 euros, so it's quite expensive even to start this company, and it is not so flexible in some ways, because it allows only two types of shares two types of share classes issued, and this is quite rigid in this time. Simplified joint stock company is not that old form of the company here in Slovakia, and what the lawmakers try to do is to create some cheap to set up company, which is very flexible, and they wanted it to be the startup type of company. But unfortunately, right now there are some, I would say, I don't want to say issues, but complications regarding the administrative side of having simplified joint stock company. So it is not very expensive to run, but it's still not cheap, right? So we'll explain it later. Maybe we can go forward, Lenka. Yeah. So here's the comparison of the minimum amount of share capital. It's a limited liability company. You need 5,000 to have it in your company. What's important to state here is that this share capital, registered capital, the company can use this money. So it's not some bulk of money that you have to have on your account to the whole existence and just have it sitting there and not using it. So this is just the initial sum that you should put on your company account, but then you can use it. So it can just flow through the company to company account and be used for its development. Joint company, as I said, requires 25,000 euro. Simplified joint stock company, only 1 euro is the minimum amount of share capital. The minimum amount of the shareholders' contribution is 750 euro in limited liability company, but the same goes with this as I mentioned in regard to share capital. It can just flow through company and be used for its development. And we can go forward, Lenka, please. And yeah. Okay, so compulsory extent of capital redemption before the company is established. Yeah, this is just maybe some very specific information that regards to the minimum amount of share capital, and it's about that you can commit on some sum when establishing the company, but not all of it has to be paid immediately. There are some time periods until and some deadlines until what time you should pay the full amount of share capital. So in regards to limited liability company, it's 2,500. In joint stock company, it's 30%. And the simplified joint stock company, it's full value, but it's 1 euro, so it's no problem at all, right? The maximum number of shareholders is 50 in limited liability company. This is, I would say, very funny limitation, but because we almost never saw startup with 50 founders, right? It's almost impossible. So we can just write there unlimited and it would be true. So it's 50, and maybe it's important if you want to create some employee stock option program in your company and you have limited liability company, because in such case you might need higher cap than 50 in regard to maximum number of shareholders. But as I mentioned, limited liability company is not very good company to have this real employee stock option program set up. So we would recommend the simplified joint stock company. Let's go forward, Lenka, please. Yeah, this is yeah, also quite specific information, and it's just important to state that if you are a natural person and you want to be a sole shareholder of a limited liability company, in Slovakia, you can only have 3. But this is also connected to other countries. So if you have a limited liability company in Czech Republic, one in Germany, and one here in Slovakia, it's the maximum. You will not be allowed to set up a second company, but you can always do that with some other founder. If you're not sole shareholder, it's completely okay. The joint stock company or simplified joint stock company doesn't have these limitations. The very similar limitation is also this anti-chaining. This is based on EU regulation, and is that if you would like to set up a Slovak limited liability company, and the sole shareholder would be some limited liability company in other country, and this sole shareholder also have only one shareholder, this will create this chain of for example, natural person, limited liability company in Czech Republic, and under that Slovak limited liability company with sole shareholder, this is impossible. It's forbidden. It's considered a chaining. So you would need at least 2 shareholders in this Slovak company. The joint stock company and simplified joint stock company are at the beginning are established by notarial deed. Here you can see the fees that needs to be paid to the notary. Yeah.
Some questions?
Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me and ask. But we'll also have this Q&A time at the end. Okay, maybe Lenka, if you can show the whole table here, because it's all about the numbers, so we can quickly. Yeah, okay. So here you can see the fees related to some mechanisms here. For example, if you want to issue shares, which you must do in joint stock company and simplified joint stock company, it would cost approximately 300 euros. Why it would cost 300 euros? We have this National Securities Depository Authority, and they register these lists of shareholders, and these are the fees that you have to pay to this authority. You also have to maintain these lists of shareholders, etc. So there are some periodic fees that you have to pay. Registering in the you also have to register a company in the commercial register. You can only you should only look at the number, the lower number, because everything is done via electronic filing. So it's 150 for limited liability company, etc. This liability of the company, of each of these company forms, is always with the entire assets and property of the company. It's logical, but as I mentioned previously, the shareholders don't guarantee with their personal assets, which is very important. Here it's good to say that it's important that if you are not only shareholder but also executive, your liability is a little bit different, because you are allowed to act on behalf of the company, and therefore you are liable to the creditors of the company if you do some shady things. So it's not that it is important to highlight this, so you understand that the liability is there if you are executive of the company. So executive, the other word is managing director, executive director, etc. Yeah. Okay. Give me a second. Yeah, the other specifics are the company bodies, for example, and liability of shareholders I mentioned. What are the company bodies? The limited liability company always have general meeting. This is created by all the shareholders, and it decides on the most important things that are listed either by default in law, in commercial code, or you can also extend this list in your corporate documentation. This goes with all 3 forms, but there's a difference in supervisory board, which is obligatory only in joint stock companies. It is important to mention that supervisory board can, by default, have very limited powers and is just a controlling body, but it's often used by investors to control the founders, which are often executive and managing directors of the company, not only shareholders. And if this happens, the investor wants to have the supervisory board, it is possible to have it in all three forms of the companies, and it is also possible to extend the powers of the supervisory board. So it can become a very, very important body of the company, which is sometimes on very similar level as general meeting. Yeah, it's very unusual to have supervisory board before you have any investor, because it just creates unnecessary administrative burden. You have to register in the commercial register. The managing directors should report to these members of the supervisory board, etc. And also you need to find these people that will be in the function of as member of supervisory board. So it's very unusual to have it in the company established before you have some investor. But as I mentioned, if there is an investment round, it's almost certain that there will be supervisory board established and most members will be elected or nominated by the investor. Yeah, the flexibility to sell shareholding, or in other words, to exit and change the structure, the shareholding structure of the company is, I would say, it's low. Flexibility is high. I think we have mistaken that. The flexibility is high in all three types. Why? Because it is possible, if you don't have any specific document like shareholders agreement established with the investor or between the founders, it can be very quick to sell shareholding and to register it in the register. So we would say that the most blockers we see when there's some exit happening or some changes in the shareholding structure is these blockers are made by some shareholders agreement or some specific provisions that are in the corporate documentation of the company, whereas these provisions are not necessary according to commercial code. These provisions are often created by the founders because they logically want some control over the shareholding structure and control each other if there will be no new shareholder, and etc. Yeah, so we can go to, okay, do you have any questions in regard to these three forms?
As I don't have any questions, now I add to my plans that maybe shift our future company to Slovakia.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for these informative sessions.
And why do you have this in mind?
What? Could you repeat, please?
Yeah.
Why have you decided like this? Like, what was the trigger point?
You show these numbers. That's about the weeks and also the minimal numbers amount of the money that's we can start, and how this environment is for the new companies, and that's yeah, interests me.
Sorry, and also additionally, thanks to Marianne who talked before you. He said that Slovakia has some problems related to transportation. So our project is also related to solve some problems there. That would be another reason also.
Okay, so it's good market for your startup, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, maybe we can move forward, and we have some specific about these three forms of the companies. Okay, we actually planned a break, but I think we can go without the break and maybe end early. So Slovak Limited Liability Company, SRO. So it's, as I said, it's most common until you have a really high turnover and more members, and until you need actually the real employee stock option program scheme established. We recommend to have limited liability company. It is not anonymous, so you will be registered in commercial register, which is publicly accessible, and everyone can see who is the sole shareholder. And if you would need if you would get the investment from some venture capital fund which is using EU money or state money, it is very probable that you will need to be registered in registry of public sector partners, and in that case you would need to disclose the ultimate beneficiary owners of the company. So it's not anonymous type of company, but I believe it doesn't matter most of people. Yeah, so we recommend this option. If you have registered office here in Slovakia, it's considered to be a Slovak company, and it's governed by Slovak law, regardless of the residency of the shareholders or other members of the bodies. Here, it's important to mention that tax residency or tax domicile is not always governed by the registered seat of the company, but by the actual office from which the company is governed or maintained. So it can be different in regard to taxes, but yeah, we are not a tax advisor, so I wouldn't go deeper to this topic. The shareholding in the limited liability company is not limited actually by nothing, but it's not limited by any specific. What is important to mention, it's very important right now, it's because of all the sanctions, etc., that we saw, I don't want to call it issues, but some longer proceedings during bank account opening for the companies that have different nationality shareholders and executives. This is maybe sometimes it just prolongs the whole process. We didn't see it as the blocker, and right now we can say that there are still some banks that are able to open the bank account, and it's not a blocker right now. Because from our experience, for example, in Germany, we heard from one startup that it's quite a problem, and they actually decided not to start the company in Germany because it was a very painful process, and they decided that they don't want to go through it. The very important thing is the managing director of the company, which may be a foreigner. However, he must be good character legal capacity must be at least 18 years old. He is obliged to submit an extract from the criminal record and of his home state and prove a residence permit in Slovak Republic. He doesn't have to prove his residence permit in Slovak Republic if he is a citizen of the EU or OECD member state. There is. We also mentioned this tip. Sometimes it can be actually easier to just buy a company which is ready made. We here in Slovakia there is plenty of service companies that establish a lot of ready-made companies and sell them, and they are not actually very expensive. It's sometimes it's a good option. What's important to say here that you will still need to provide the bank, for example, with information that the shareholding of this ready-made company changed. So the process with bank would be still the same, we believe. So if the pain point is bank account, which often is the only pain point, buying a ready-made company might not help. Join the company, we can go actually very quickly through this one because it's not very suitable for startups. They're quite complex companies. You need all three bodies: general meeting, you need board of directors, you need supervisory board. Supervisory board must be of 3 members. So you, together with at least 1 member of the board of directors, you need 4 people just to have all the bodies established. The shareholding is proved by the share certificate. You need to register your list of shareholders at the National Central Securities Depository, this authority. So there are extra fees arising from this. The list of shareholders here is not public, so the shareholders might be anonymous, but they are not anonymous to the authorities. You know, they can go to the Slovak National Central Securities Depository and ask, and I believe if they have legit reason, if this public authority have legit reason, they will get to this list. So it's not bulletproof, and I understand this is not very important for startups to be anonymous. The shareholders want to build some personal brand, and this is actually going against it. So it's more suitable, this company, for larger scale businesses. So there is plenty of just companies here in Slovakia, but most of them are old and big companies. Maybe we can go to the simplified just company. This one is something between the classic joint stock company and limited liability company. The lawmakers were actually inspired by these 2 types and tried to create something in between. It is very flexible, and the main reason is that not only that you need just €1 of registered capital, and the shareholders' contribution is just 1 cent, but also you can create a lot of different share classes, which creates some place for the founders, some key employees, angel investors, and some professional investors, and you can create this shareholdings, some complex shareholding structure where everyone has the right amount of power, and you can build on this one. The problem we see often is that it's specific to Slovak Republic. So, for example, if you want to do some fundraising in another country from Europe, the lawyers from that country might be confused. What's this type of company? And you have to explain to them that it's close to some joint stock companies in other countries, but for example, in Czech Republic, it's closer to their limited liability company because they have very flexible limited liability company, similar to our joint stock, simplified joint stock company. This is maybe the main thing about the registered capital and the flexibility of shareholding. Maybe heads up, the Slovak lawmakers saw that this problem I mentioned it's sometimes quite important, and they saw that it is possible to create a very flexible limited liability company, and they saw it in Czech Republic. So right now, we don't know how long it will take. It might be 2 years, it might be 10 years. You never know with the lawmakers, but they would like to change our limited liability company, make it much more flexible, and maybe just transform all the joint stock company to these limited liability companies. This would be a great. I think that this would be a great move, and it would be very beneficial to startup environment here in Slovakia. Okay, maybe we can, same as since the joint stock simplified joint stock company also issue share certificates, but not in in printed form, but they are just virtual, and they are listed in this National Center Securities Depository. This is maybe the most visible burden of this simplified joint stock company. You need to create the register of shareholders in this national depository, and you have to pay the fees and maintain this register, and it is publicly accessible, so the shareholders are not anonymous. What's also important to say that if you want, as a shareholder, if you want to hold shares of the simplified joint stock company, you need to have your own account for these shares you own, and you have to pay fees for this account, and you have to go through the KYC process with the provider of this service. It is not provided only by National Central Securities Depository, but this service for shareholders is provided by private companies, but they all have to do the KYC with the shareholder. So this is sometimes painful, and it's very similar to bank account opening, because if you look at the companies that provide these services, these are most of the time banks and very similar institutions. Okay, so if you want to be a freelancer here in Slovakia, we will go very briefly through this one. It's called živnosť here in Slovakia, and it's this might sound complicated, but if you want to do if you want to be an entrepreneur here in Slovakia, it doesn't matter if you want to be an entrepreneur as a natural person, this freelancer, or a company, you always need this trade license. And if a natural person gets trade license, he became freelancer and entrepreneur, and can carry out these activities. As I mentioned previously, such person would be liable with all of his personal assets. So it doesn't matter that some assets are not connected to his business. If the natural person have trade license and provide some services, etc., he's liable with all of his assets. So that's why it's not very usual to create startup and build startup via this way, because startups they are operating on some cutting edge part of the business, and there is probability of fail, and if startup fails, the only outcome should be that these founders will move to some next project, not to be liable to all the creditors, etc., with their personal assets. Yeah. Yeah, this the trade licenses, and it doesn't matter if you're a company or a natural person, are differentiated in 3 tiers: the free trades, bound trades, and craft trades. And the difference is how hard it is to get this trade license and what you need to provide to the trade office. Most of the time, startups and tech startups are operating with free trades. It's quite unusual with bound trades or craft trades, but yeah, if you are some health tech company, it is probable that you will need more than free trade. Yes, these software development studios and some companies that want to create some apps most often use free trades, and same goes with the natural person, the freelancers. We can go forward, Lenka, please. Yeah, we can do some short comparison between the limited liability company and freelancer. And long story short, the administrative burden on it's much lower on the side of the freelancer. You just need the trade license, and if you have a trade license, you can start operate. You don't need you can have this registered seat of your business where you live, but it's similar with the limited liability company. But by where you live, I mean Slovak Republic. So you here in Slovakia, we have a lot of service providers that can provide you with virtual registered seat. So this is no problem, and the fees are very low. It's really like 100 euro for a year, I believe. Lenka may correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe these virtual seats are very, very cheap here in Slovakia right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Free trades are free of charge, so the natural person actually don't need any initial investments in terms of some fee to the trade office if such person wants to use these free trades. I mentioned the liability is in favor of limited liability company, and tax burden, even though we are not tax advisor, we can state that the taxes are in favor of limited liability company, we believe. And yeah, you have to, as a natural person and freelancer, you have to contribute to the social insurance institution and health insurance fund. And yeah, it will grow with your remuneration and with your revenues. So that's why it's in the long run, it's better to be a limited liability company. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. This is some maybe specifics related to startups. The entry of a new business partner. This is important for startups that if you want to form some startup and some cooperation and do the fundraising, etc., it is much better to build the startup with some company, some legal person, for example, the limited liability company. And that's why, because, for example, if you create under this company some intellectual property, it will be owned by the company. You don't have to create some special agreement, cooperation agreement, as it is mentioned here, in regard to natural persons. And you can very easily change the shareholding structure in the limited liability company. The new shareholder can either buy some part of the share of the other already existing shareholder, or you can increase the registered capital of the company, and this new shareholder will undertake to contribute to the registered company, and thus become the shareholder of the company and share all the rights to the IPs with the IP of the company with the other shareholders. Disclosure of financial information. It's for startups. I believe this is not very relevant, but we can quickly explain that companies here in Slovakia need to disclose their financial statements. So these statements are public; everyone can see them. And this is, I believe, for the benefit of everyone. And it's because if you are a Slovak company or Slovak natural person and want to start some cooperation or some deal with another company, you can always check their numbers. If they lie with these numbers, for them it's much bigger problem with the authorities, but it's much better because you at least see some numbers and see if they're in a good or bad shape and their history. But on the other hand, if you want to do some deal with natural person, you know this person is liable with all his personal assets, but you actually cannot see his financial statements as a freelancer, and you actually have no idea what's the shape of their business and their financials. Administrative burden and business closure. This is maybe the sad part of being a startup. If you want to stop the business and close it, it is logically much more expensive if you want to close the limited liability company or any form of the company here in Slovakia. Maybe this is the most important information here. If you are not a person and want to close your business, you can do just filing to the trade office, and of course you need to report it to the tax office as well, and then do all the reporting towards the tax office. But it's the same with tax office. It's the same as limited liability company. We can go very quickly through the taxation. I mentioned we are not the tax advisors. We have a company that we cooperate with, and they provided us with this brief overview. The standard income tax is 21%. We also have this reduced income tax of 15%, but this is applicable only if you have revenues up to certain number in relevant tax period. There is also withholding tax of 7% that will apply to dividend payments to individuals, and as I mentioned, it's not applicable if the dividend is payable to a legal person. non-resident companies are taxed only income earned in Slovakia and at the same rate as resident companies. Yeah, expenses are generally tax deductible. This is very general statement. Yeah. You have to always. It is important to say that we provided you with some numbers of and some expenses you should count with if you are coming to Slovakia and establish company here. But we certainly advise you to have advisors, yeah, legal and also tax and accounting advisors, because it's mentioned here that the expenses are generally tax deductible, but you need to create these expenses wisely and with some advisory services of tax advisors. Yeah, initial costs that we mentioned here are tax deductible. So if you will create profits, it will be deductible. Important thing to mention here, and we always say that this to startups, is that taxes and taxation is important. But if you are creating startup, starting your business, it is very probable that you will be in loss for a few years, and there will be no revenue and no profits so high that you need to actually deal with some high taxes, etc. So it is very important to set up the startup in some area or country where the business is right for you, the environment is right for you, and you can deal with taxes at the time when you will have huge profits coming.
I think we are in the end.
Yeah, so if you have any questions.
But before this, I want to go to the beginning, because we skip our playbook, and maybe this is something interesting for you.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, I will just quickly explain what the playbook is. The sparring, as I mentioned, started saw this gap on the market with all of the startups that need simple advisory services that are very practicable for them and tailored to their needs. And we understood that a lot of initial actions can be done by the founders themselves, and a lot of decisions can be made before they approach some advisor, and it is important for the founder to understand the big picture before they start this communication with the advisor. So we created this open source platform, Sparring Playbook, which it's free of charge. You don't need to actually log in or anything. You can just go through it, and it's some sort of manual how to start startup and how to think about the most important stuff that are decisive for your success. And yeah, we advise you to go there, look it up, and there are also templates for download. And yeah, it's very helpful for very early stage startups, and it's applicable for the Europe as a whole. It's not only Slovak related, right?
Right. You have templates here. Here are legal manuals, which means like some topics that are interesting for every startup. Lastly, we add crypto law, which is like a big topic right now here. So there is many information here about it, and also about investments, about founders relationship, and like you can go here. It's open source. It's for free. You can share it. You can also give us some feedback. You can check here also some blogs which are on legal topics, and also we did podcast with interesting people, so if you will have time, just listen it. Maybe I can stop sharing.
Yeah, I believe for now you guys can stop sharing. Thank you for that presentation, and then I believe we opened the discussion stage, and